Every single day, cities and farms discard millions of tons of organic waste. Food scraps, crop residues, and animal manure are gathered up, trucked out of town, and piled into sprawling open-air landfills. Buried under mountains of trash, that organic matter is starved of oxygen. As it slowly rots in the dark, it produces massive quantities of methane, a greenhouse gas far more potent than carbon dioxide. At the exact same time, the global agricultural system is hitting a wall. Decades of heavy reliance on synthetic chemical fertilizers have stripped farmland of its natural microbial life. The physical structure of the soil is degrading, threatening long-term crop yields. The traditional biological solution to organic waste is a small plastic bin in a backyard garden, a quiet, slightly messy hobby where a few handfuls of worms slowly chew through last night's vegetable scraps. But over the last few decades, a new class of entrepreneurs has realized the underlying biology of that garden bin can be scaled. They are building massive, climate-controlled commercial facilities processing hundreds of tons of waste every single month. By utilizing earthworms as a highly efficient industrial workforce, these operations are intercepting an environmental hazard before it reaches a landfill and converting it into a premium, highly sought-after agricultural fertilizer. The engine of this process is Eisenia fetida, commonly known as the red wiggler. In nature, these earthworms consume decaying organic matter and break it down into castings, dense, dark material packed with beneficial microbes and plant-available nutrients. But scaling up this tiny biological machine comes with a serious engineering constraint. You cannot simply dump truckloads of raw, fresh municipal waste onto millions of worms. When fresh, organic material begins to decompose, it acts like an erratic furnace. The initial microbial breakdown spikes temperatures and releases volatile, harmful gases that would completely eradicate a delicate worm colony in hours. To solve this, operators implement a mandatory pre-composting phase. The fresh waste is piled and allowed to partially decompose on its own. This initial aging process stabilizes the raw material, vents off the dangerous gases, and brings the temperature down to a safe ambient level. Building a successful facility requires managing that precise threshold. The primary job of the operator isn't actually managing the worms themselves. It's engineering a strictly controlled buffer between highly volatile garbage and the biological processors that will ultimately consume it. This diagram shows the required internal environment of a commercial worm bed. To keep the workforce active, core temperatures inside these long windrows must be strictly maintained between 15 and 30 degrees Celsius. Moisture levels are held tightly around 60 to 70%, but the beds also require constant airflow. If the material becomes too wet or compacted, oxygen gets cut off. The bottom layers turn anaerobic, meaning they lack oxygen, causing the compost to sour and the workers to suffocate. When the environment is dialed in, the worms take about 45 to 60 days to process a batch of material. Once the feed is consumed, the final crumbly compost is mechanically screened to separate out the worms and create a uniform, market-ready texture. This chart illustrates the underlying economic advantage of the process. The bars represent total compost yield, while the rising curve tracks the worm population. Under these optimized conditions, the biological workforce actually doubles every few months. That rapid biological replication generates two distinct revenue streams from a single input. Facilities sell the screened compost as a premium organic fertilizer, and they harvest the surplus worms to sell to new startups, agricultural programs, or fishing bait markets. It is an industrial manufacturing model where the capital equipment naturally reproduces itself. With agricultural waste serving as a cheap, abundant raw material, the expanding workforce perpetually compounds the factory's production capacity while driving down the overall operating costs. The final product arrives at a market actively looking to rebuild its topsoil. Organic farmers, commercial nurseries, and urban landscaping firms purchase the compost in bulk to restore degraded land, while regional governments increasingly subsidize production to meet long-term sustainability targets. This animated flowchart maps out a closed-loop biological system. Instead of municipal and agricultural waste flowing straight into a landfill to generate methane, it is intercepted, processed through the facility, and returned directly to the farmland as a restorative nutrient. This specific cycle is a foundational pillar of regenerative agriculture. Rather than treating farmland as a resource to be extracted until it is depleted, the system is designed to actively repair the physical structure and microbiological health of the soil over time. Modern agriculture spent the entire 20th century trying to maximize crop yields using highly engineered synthetic chemicals, heavy mechanical tillers, and sterile environments. The most effective path forward for sustainable farming relies on a much simpler premise. It relies on building carefully controlled environments, stepping back, and allowing nature to execute the exact biological processes it has spent millions of years perfecting.